we go. Welcome to the Love is Our Nature podcast. I am your host, Cesar Rodriguez, and I have an amazing guest here with me, very good friend of mine that I met in Costa Rica. Her name is Tish Steenkamp. And let me just tell you a little bit about Tish Steenkamp. She's originally from South Africa. She now calls Costa Rica her home, and for the past 5 years has been co-creating health and wellness experiences, coordinating yoga teacher training programs, and plant medicine ceremonies. Tish is an extraordinaire when it comes to coordinating and working with talent and influencers. Her passion is her service to humanity. She has been fortunate to have lived in multiple countries and traveled throughout the world, exploring different healing practices. She journeyed to Peru and completed her registered yoga training 200-hour yoga and meditation certification to deepen her connection to self. She studied ancient healing techniques with elders from Guatemala to Colombia and shares a variety of holistic healing practices that include sound therapy, wound clearing and healing, and creating safe containers for a deeper exploration to one's true self. An awakener of the bliss body and a leader in the emerging feminine consciousness, she brings her gifts forward to help humans transcend blocks, balance energy, and activate a healthy mind, body, spirit relationship through embodiment and intentional living. She reminds her students that personal growth is not only powerful and self-elevating, but also has the potential to be fun and joyfully integrated with everyday living. Welcome, Tish, to the Love is Our Nature podcast.
Thank you, Caesar. Wow.
Yeah, what an amazing introduction.
I don't always get to hear when someone reads a little bit of my bio. So yeah, just kind of like as you were reading that, I was like taking myself back to these different times of my life, you know, traveling through Peru and then coming to Costa Rica and working with the elders from Colombia. And yeah, and I also feel like this life journey has so many lifetimes within the life, right? Because what we even haven't mentioned here, it's like I was just a very normal human being 10 years ago when I was an accountant, you know, and worked in corporate. And so I wasn't always like this human that I am now. And I'm always evolving and every day I'm changing. And I'm just trusting in this beautiful mystery that's unfolding that continues to fill me up with who I am becoming. So thank you for that introduction.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And I definitely want to hear more about the accountant Tish and the transition. So why don't we start there? Let's just tell us a couple minutes about, you know, life before a conscious awakening, so to speak, right? I met you, and just to speak to that a little bit, right? I met you in January in Costa Rica. We had the fortune of attending this awesome event at, I think it's called Azul Beach Club. And there you were. And we hit it off. You were with Darren Austin Hall as well, who we've had on the podcast. And yeah, it was just such an amazing energy that I got from all you guys. So please tell me a little bit about what life was like before and how this transition happened.
It was my pleasure. So I grew up in a quote unquote normal household. You know, my mom and dad both had full-time jobs, and I was living this life of normality, you know, going to school and getting the job and having the fiance and all of the things that life told me I needed to have in order for me to be successful. So I studied financial risk management at the University of South Africa, and I did a few other diplomas for business management and project management and a whole bunch of different things too. At the end of the day, ended up working at a corporate events company, which was amazing because I'm still kind of working in hospitality and events. But, you know, I was successful very fast at a very young age. And at around 25, I had this beautiful job that paid a very high-end salary. And I had all of the pension funds and the medical aids. And I had a fiance to be with a beautiful white picket fence in the coast of Mshanga and Costa Rica and in South Africa. And there was still a part of me that just felt so empty. I just felt like, wow, it looked like I was like this hunger inside of me wanting more.
Say that one more time,
And
Tish, because you cut out a little bit. I know it's raining in Costa Rica, and we'll just include that, right? It's totally fine. So you say that last part again.
yeah, so I knew deep within my soul that there was this yearning for something more, for a deeper connection to self and to life. And there was this hunger and this thirst. And so I used to be a churchgoer. So my ex-fiance, he was the preacher's son. So we would go to Sunday church, and I would stand in front of the church singing my songs, and very Hillsong type of church. And I came home after church that Sunday, and I fell on my knees, and I was like, God, is this the life that you had planned for me? Is this all there is the question that I asked. And that same week I lost my job. My fiance and I broke up, and I decided to completely change my life. It was in 2012. Many of us have had a huge shift in consciousness within 2012, and we call it like the first wave of those who started to wake up, quote unquote. And I was definitely one of those. So in 2012, I quit my corporate job, and I decided to start a business with hats, because I loved making hats. I loved wearing hats, and the hats was always too big for my head. So I was like, okay, I'll just start designing these hats. So I started making hats. It was called Hats by Nats. And I got my first client as Miss South Africa. So I started designing all of her hats for all of her shows, and that was very successful. But then I realized that what I was really hungry for was traveling. So I did an SDCW course and started working on super yachts, and sailed around the world for 2 years, working as a sous chef and doing some accounting for some of these boats. And it was really through this experience that I was just so mesmerized by the beauty and the majesty of nature, and the lessons that I kept receiving, and the messages that I kept receiving from this beauty. Like I was really like just so mesmerized by, first and foremost, being on the water and just being able to feel all my emotions that was coming up. And at that time, I was in this threshold of starting to read about Deepak Chopra and learning about meditation, and this was like many years ago. And so everybody on the boats, on the yachts, was like, whenever we had time off, it's like, let's go to the bar and, drink some beers and have some wine and party. And all I wanted to do was sit out on the deck, have some sunlight on my body, and read these books and try to meditate. So I had already felt a little bit disconnected and alienated from, quote unquote, friends and the people that I was surrounding myself with. And this is something that I'm seeing with so many people as we start to wake up. It's like the people around us are kind of staying in the same vibration and doing the same things. And we start to shift, from little things, from not really feeling the call or the need to eat certain foods, or go out to bars and drink, or consume, the kind of media that we've been consuming, because we are all on some level starting to shift in consciousness. And that just happened to me many years ago. So to circle back to the question that you had asked, was that, how did it all happen? Well, it happened when I was ready to say yes to making a change in my life. And I knew that there was more to life than just being successful at 25, driving a super sweet car and having a big penthouse on the beach and a fiance to be. That's when God, quote unquote, the universe kind of like, Eddie, let's go. And
You said that's when the universe what?
Pulled the carpet out from underneath me. It pulled the rug out from underneath me. And it was like, okay, it's time for you to wake up. And I did. And now I'm just so grateful that I had those experiences. I did the whole, quote unquote, life that society tells us to do in order for us to be successful. And now I can see that it was a programming. I can see so clearly that we have been all programmed to do things in a certain way, to show up in a certain way. And now we are all waking up from that dream. Most of us are. And thanks to what's happening in the world, because of what is happening in the world, we get to choose. And so that's my story.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what an amazing time we're in, right? Where this awakening is happening. How lucky are we that we get to be a part of it and witness it all?
Yes, no, definitely. I see it as such a blessing. And of course, you know, like it's always like the way that we accelerate the fastest in terms of change is when we're in our most uncomfortable space. So maybe for COVID, many of us, it's been very uncomfortable, but it's in that space that we can really see what works and what's not working. And then we get to empower ourselves to make decisions and take action steps towards what we want and what we want to call into our lives.
Yeah, that's one thing I found very interesting during the whole COVID time is a lot of people seem to have even a deeper process of awakening or a deeper learning. What would you say 2020 brought you? What was the things that started to unfold for you as far as insightfully speaking?
Being in an ayahuasca journey without drinking any medicine. I
Uh-huh.
um I basically, it is so interesting how it all unfolded, Caesar. I was on my way to Nicaragua. I just had finished a beautiful gathering called Forest Dance, and it's a gathering that we come together every year and we pray around the fire and we dance around the fire for 4 nights in prayer and celebration. And so we were completely offline. We didn't have our phones. We didn't check. So as soon as the event closed, we closed the ceremony, I checked on my phone and there was all these messages from all the people that I was working with for building their retreats. And they were like, canceling this retreat, canceling this, like this, there's something COVID. I'm like, what is COVID? So I left this container and I was like, literally, I was 2 days, I was on my way flying to Nicaragua and there was just like, I could still fly. The airports were still open. And I was like, I'm not supposed to be going to Nicaragua right now. I was supposed to go check out a retreat center for my client. And I knew that that wasn't what I was supposed to do. So I listened and I turned around. I didn't fly that day. And I said, where am I going? Because now I had, planned for a month to be away. And I remembered meeting this couple at an event called Sound and Silence. And I called them up and I said, hey, are you guys still open to me coming to visit your land? They had a beautiful land in the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica. And they were like, yes, come. So I arrived to them and I remember as soon as I got there, I just started bursting out in tears. It was almost
Mhm.
like I knew something was coming. I knew the enormity of what was really going on in the world, even though I had no idea.
Did you have an intention
And
in reaching out to them when you said, "Hey, let me go check out your land"?
no,
Uh-huh.
not at all. I mean,
Uh-huh.
like we had talked before to meet up and for them to show me their land and
For them to show you their
free
land and what else? I'm sorry?
to hang out with their kids. They had
Hmm.
these three, they still have these three beautiful boys, and I was so mesmerized and intrigued by these kids that I wanted to go spend time with them. Um, so yeah, the short of it was that I ended up at this land. We sat in a medicine ceremony together because they also work with plant medicines.
Mhm.
And we received a beautiful vision to create a community. And so it was through this pandemic that
Mm.
a community called Om Sat was
Mhm.
birthed. And
Mhm.
Om, which means the sound of the universe, right? The universal sound, the all of creation. And Sat, the word Sat means truth in Sanskrit. And Sat
Mhm.
is also the abbreviation of the names of his children. So his sons' names are Simon, Alex, and Taya.
Oh, wow,
So
I
it
didn't know
just so
this.
happened to, yeah. So it just so happened to be that he knew. Like I believe that Andre, the guardian of this land, have always had a knowing that there was going to be something that's going to unfold in this land because he actually bought it from a local indigenous shaman, and this shaman
Mm.
said to him, "Please take care of this land." So
Mm.
there's no coincidences here. All of this is divinely orchestrated. And so in the short of it, through this pandemic, I found myself birthing this community project with the landowners. And through my own journey, I was just in a deep mode of shedding and coming home to myself and healing my nervous system, because
Mm,
my quote unquote past life was about running, meaning I had one retreat and one production and one thing after, constant go. I was
mhm,
operating on pure adrenaline. And when I
mhm,
had to slow down, that's when my nervous system just completely collapsed. And then I realized that I was suffering from adrenal fatigue. And so it took me, I took that whole year to really just work with different herbs and different sleep patterns and different meditations and grounding and earthing. And healing myself. I was
mhm.
literally just like focusing on me for the first time, just like what was my needs. And it was so great to slow down. I deeply appreciated it. And I was also able to create an online program for women called Grounding into Simplicity. And what this
Mm,
program was teaching them was all of these tools that I have accumulated throughout my whole awakening, from
mhm.
meditation to yoga to working with the elements and prayer and, and ceremony. And I was just sharing that with them because women at that time really needed something. Everybody was just kind of like, they didn't know what was going on. And so
Yeah.
I didn't plan on creating an online program. I've never done it. It was just like, this is what you need to do right now. And I did. And you know, I had 17 women sign up, and it was a 3-month journey. And through the process, my mom also joined the program, and it was really great to like just heal that mother and daughter relationship through this
Mm,
exploration of this program. So I think, to summarize it, for me, the year 2020 was a healing of self, of my nervous system, of my being, and also just understanding what it was like to feel grounded in one place for a year, and planting my own food and harvesting from my own garden and being nourished by the land, and slowing down and
mm.
shedding, just shedding all of the layers. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was my
Just
2020.
amazing. So many gifts came your way, huh? And I had the fortune of visiting the Omsat community, which is on this beautiful mountain, and it was great to see it. And I wanna hear a bit more about like what has this. Well, first I want to say what I was impressed by. I hear a lot of people talk about creating a community off the grid, right? And you all actually had the idea, had the vision, and created it. And like there you are, you live there now. So what was the process of creating it like? Like how hard was it? What did you have to figure out? What were the obstacles? And then I want to know what it's been like living there.
Yeah, wow. There's so much that goes with that, Caesar, because first and foremost, just to be very clear, I have never created a community, and I've never officially lived in like a closed community. So, and what do I mean by
Mhm.
closed community? Closed community means like it's one parcel of land and there's many people living on the land, and we're all working together towards the same value systems and
Mhm.
intentions. And so the way that this all happened, I truly believe was source working through me. It wasn't like me and Andre was like, these are the rules and this is how we're going to do it. And it was more just like learning as we were going. Okay, what do we really need? So the first thing I did was I created an information pack, which kind of explained our vision and our mission, you know, our values, who we are, what we stand for. And really, the crux of Omsat is a place where people can live in harmony with the earth and themselves and each other, and learning from each other. It's not about you need to come to meditation and you need to come to sell, you know, like there's obviously all these offerings where people come into the community and share their gifts and come and explore different techniques of healing themselves and coming back to themselves. But none of it, if you want to have a glass of wine, you can have a glass of wine. There was none of like some kind of like culty kind of like, this is how it needs to be. So the way that we developed it out is like I worked with a sister of mine, Kate Teal, which initially she was going to come down and join the community, and she helped me with the back end. So we set up all these application forms for people that we would eventually invite to come and live at the land. We set up the deck. We have nothing on social media. It's a completely private community, meaning that everybody that finds us is through word of mouth, like this podcast, for instance, or people that know me personally, or people like you that come visit. And I find that so special
Mm.
because it's really like the magnetism of the energy of people that is in resonance with what we're speaking and saying and connecting with, that they come and want and are curious to learn about this. And then Andre and I, in terms of what was already on the land, he had his house and two other houses that was already built for him and his family. And then we made the decision to build 5 A-frame units, which I was able to get a sponsor. A friend of mine was an angel investor and was like, hey, I really want to support this project. And he, supported the building of those. And then we
What
had,
was in it for him as an investor?
so I shared with him the vision, and he's
Mhm.
actually coming to see us this weekend. He's going to come stay with us for a month or so. He came from Mexico and flew down, and so he's going to come and stay with us. He's just someone who really believes in the things that I work with, and he was like, I really believe in this project that you want to create in terms of creating a refuge for people. Because when we were in thick COVID times, it was like we were like planting food and like we were planning for the apocalypse, like we
Mm.
were, it's like if the world goes to shambles, we're good to go,
Mm.
like. And so he was seeing that could potentially be a way of where the world was going, and he wanted to support that. He wanted to support a place that could be a refuge for people. So
Mhm.
at the moment, so how it all ended up being was that we started putting together these monthly full moon gatherings where I would then invite the outer community within the community, so the people of Puerto Viejo, to come once a month and receive yoga and sound healing, cacao ceremonies, fire circles, prayer, song, dance, celebration. And they would then basically see what we're creating there, and they would get curious and be like, hey, so we had then 3 families build homes on the land. So the land's 22 acres. And and then the other structures was already there, plus the 5 A-frame units. So at the moment we have 12 full-time members. And then we have, I call them rotating members. Those are the people that comes in for a month or 3 months
Mhm.
at a time. And they come and volunteer their time, So we
Mhm.
have a few of them there as well that's living in the A-frames right now at the moment. Um,
Okay.
yeah, and we're
But
still learning,
yeah,
still learning all the time.
so exciting. And what's it like living so closely and aligning, having to align with other individuals as well, like when they come from all kinds of different backgrounds and walks of life? Like, what's the day-to-day living like the thick of it?
Yes, 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 yes. And that's so beautiful that you asked, because our community is so multicultural. Andre is from Germany. His wife is a Tika from Costa Rica. I am from South Africa. My neighbor is from Guatemala. Her daughter is United, and her partner who runs the
The
school,
last I
they're
heard
from
was his
Colombia.
daughter was from the United States.
Yes. And then we have people from Colombia, we have people from Argentina. So it's a very multicultural community, which is really amazing.
Mhm.
And I can say one thing for sure. If you really want to do deep spiritual work, live in a community,
Mm.
because everything isn't just sitting around the fire and singing kumbaya together. There is definitely differences that will and continues to arise because people go through their own process, and it's through these processes, I call it quote unquote our darkness, right? The shadow aspect that not everybody wants to see, that we hold space for one another and we uplift each other and we support each other, because community is really about being there for one another as family, no matter what. No matter
Mm.
what this person is done or is going through, we see them and we have compassion for them and we love them just as they are. And so, it's about adapting. Like that, I live next to a beautiful woman and her daughter, and a lot of times there's a give and take. You have to be mindful of other people's spaces and sound and smells and all these kinds of things. But you just learn to to live that way. It's a new way of adapting and learning, right? And
Mm,
then there's beautiful fun things too. Like we have planting every week where everybody comes together and we plant, and
mm,
we come together once a week and we have community meetings and share where we're at and who needs support. I teach yoga and I offer sound healing for the kids and cacao, and we have a fire circle. There's just so many good things,
mm.
that it's okay for me to be like, you know what, you learn about how to relate,
You cut
how to
out for a second,
authentically.
Tish. So you said for you to be like, you know what?
Yeah, you learn basically how to authentically relate with
Mm,
one another,
mhm,
to speak your highest truth in a way that is supportive for one another, that can uplift each other.
mhm.
And yeah, it's just living in community has so many beautiful ways of expanding one's awareness of self and of the surroundings that we're in, and living and learning how to live in harmony with, nature.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Do you think if like your everyday person, who's got their house, going to work in Western society, do you think that this is something they would enjoy?
Yes, definitely. I would say the first thing that they would enjoy is that there's no pressure. There's
Mhm,
no like anxiety. Like everybody is very present. We're
mhm,
present with ourselves, with our feelings, with what's happening in nature. We always have a moment to come together to connect. We I know we're in COVID times, but honestly, we always hug each other. We bring coffee for each other in the morning, or, sit around the fire at night and play some music. So I feel if someone is feeling, if I'm taking someone from the outside world, and they want to come to explore something like this, it would be an opportunity to get your hands dirty in the earth, to come and plant, to feel what it feels like to be in an environment that's nourishing, like the sounds of nature, how that stimulates you, to eat organic food, to be around people that really care, um, to experience things that might be new, like a sweat lodge, or, you know, singing songs around the fire, or storytelling under the stars. These are all things that's very normal to me, but that could be very new to someone that have never experienced living in community.
yeah. Yeah, it definitely sounds like there's a lot to be gained from living that closely with someone and with others. I know for me, I came to Costa Rica with an intention of doing some of my own inner work, being introspective, and I didn't know I was gonna start off in a very small town where the most exciting thing there was for me to do was go to the grocery store, and then of course watch the sunset. And I really embraced it. I enjoyed that time on my own the first month so much so, and I also found it productive for my own journey that I booked the second month in that same town. And what I found though is after 2 months of basically living alone with very little interaction with other people, I was starting to get very used to it, and in a way like I appreciated it. And when I finally met another traveler towards the end of the second month, I almost didn't even know how to make space for having somebody in my life anymore. I was surprised by how easily just was living in my own little bubble, and it's a bit of an illusion because that's not life, right? Like we're on Earth with 7+ billion people, and it's so easy to just kind of shut the world out sometimes and just live, do our own thing. So I can I can start to imagine, thanks to what you've been describing, like what it must be like to practice that kind of closeness with others and seeing what arises for us internally, like, ooh, like, I don't like that. I don't like that they did that. Why don't I like that? Right? Like, or why am I uncomfortable with this? Or what am I not saying? Right? And all these things that could arise. So that's that's really great. What would you say has been your biggest lesson in living in a community like this?
Yeah. So it's pouring really hard. I hope that you can still hear me okay.
I hear you.
I would say, okay. I would say that there's a few, I would say like maybe my top three takeaways from living in a community in the past year and really living in community was um, number one, understanding like water is life. And the reason why I'm saying that is we we're catching rainwater and we're also getting our water from a spring. But if it's dry season, there was no water and the spring would run dry and we would have to be very careful with our water consumption. And there was a few times when I ended up without water and it was a little uncomfortable. I won't lie. I was like, oh wow, why am I doing this quote unquote to myself? But I
Hmm.
was really appreciating just like how much water is needed and how my relationship to water has changed because now I understand how clean water that I was
Now
drinking and
you
having.
understand what? I'm sorry.
I understood how precious this water was for me in my life in every way, and clean drinking water and being able to water my plants, and being able to have water to wash myself, like really just understanding like and forming a new relationship with water, understanding that water is life and water is sacred. That was my first thing. The
Amazing.
second thing that I've learned living in community, that's one of my greatest takeaways, is always speak my truth. And it's a challenging thing because sometimes your truth, if especially for me, when I speak my truth, which is one of my highest values, it may be triggering to someone or it may be hurtful to someone. And so I had to learn how to deliver truth in a way that could support someone without harming them. But it is super important for us to always speak our truth in a community because if we don't, what happens is those feelings kind of like they get stuck in our heart space and then we kind of lash out to one another if we're not speaking like, hey, this is at this moment, I need to address this situation with you because of this X, Y, and Z. And when we don't take care of these things, it kind of like bubbles up and escalates into something way greater than if only we had spoken our truth a week or a
Mm,
month or whatever ago. So always speaking our highest truth and doing so with a lot of compassion and understanding.
mm.
And then the third thing that I've learned about living and being in community is that um, safety is super important for me. I feel so safe, and not only in the environment that I'm with, but also with the people, meaning that I know that these people look out for me. They actually care for me, you
Mm.
know? And having that feeling of feeling safe and supported is was a game changer for me. When I needed an egg, I can go to my
Mm.
fellow community member and get something, or we have someone who bakes bread at the land and they'll come and deliver bread for me in the morning. And it was just like that, knowing that we have each other's back and that I was safe there. I was safe to be me and fully be me, even in the times when I was moving through sadness and pain and suffering and you know um, quote unquote dark parts and the shadow parts. They still love me just as much
Yeah,
as they love my light. So I would say those are the three things that I walked away with.
that's awesome. Thanks for sharing those with us. And I'm sure we could keep going about everything that has transpired for you, or lessons that you've learned there. I do want to ask you though about plant medicine. I think I've come to learn that that's a big part of your life. Yes. And that is actually where the message of love is our nature was born. It was from my first plant medicine journey. And I love getting to know other people's experiences with plant medicine. So, when was your first plant medicine journey, and what was like your biggest takeaway from your very first journey, if you remember?
Yeah, well, and I'm really grateful, Caesar, that you have created, or this podcast has been created through this experience for you and sharing the power and the potency. My
I
first ever
heard you say the
experience with
power and the
plant,
potency of what? I'm sorry.
of how you are speaking and educating people about plant medicines,
Hmm.
really being able to help people understand that the plants are here to help us and that they're not some weird kind of psychoactive drug that people are portraying for it to be, but it's really a master, and it's really medicine.
Yes.
So I'm
Thank you.
grateful that that you continue to share this work and share this education around it.
Mhm.
Um,
Thank you.
so my journey with plant medicine started in 2013 when I did my yoga teacher training in Peru. And the first, I was actually scheduled to sit with ayahuasca, but I had my moon cycle come in, and I just felt like it wasn't the right time for me to sit with the medicine at that time. It was my first ever. I was very scared. I was like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh. And then the shaman was like, okay, well, would you like to work with a cactus? And I was like, yeah, sure. He's like, we're just gonna go for a hike and we're gonna drink this cactus. So the medicine of Wachuma, which is really my most preferred medicine that I work with, besides psilocybin, and I was being held by this shaman and his family in their house. They took me in. We had a ceremony with Wachuma, and then we went for a walk into the Andes and into the mountains, and all the mountains, all the apus started coming alive, and I started seeing all these faces of my elder people in these mountains, and they started talking to me, and I was like, and I had these huge emotional like energy waves moving through me, and I just kept, walked. We probably walked for like 7 hours. It was so amazing. And I think up until today that I'm very grateful that I listened even back then to my intuition by not working with the ayahuasca vine first, but first having the Wachuma experience, being able to do the healing work with my ancestors, and then being able to step into the womb of the mother with the ayahuasca. And yeah, it's
When
been
you
a long
say,
time now.
yeah, when you say the healing work with your ancestors, can you say a little bit more about that?
Yes. So basically, the Wachuma and the San Pedro is an opportunity for us to work with our ancestral lineage. So, what I had seen during this journey that I was on was pain and suffering from what my grandmother and her grandmother had carried. And it was just almost like it's like a remembrance. I don't know how to explain this kind of work to you, but it's almost like I had knew, like they were shut down, they were silenced, and I was like feeling all of the pain and the suffering that they couldn't even feel. It was almost like they were not even allowed to feel, and that these apus, these faces that I kept seeing in the mountains, was giving me the permission to feel. So I would look at her, and it was like they would transmit a story to me. Like there was images that I had seen where women would be crawling on the floor and bleeding, right? And then being hit. And I didn't see like, oh, it was my grandma. I actually have never even met my real grandmother from my father's side, but I knew that these were the women that came before me, and it was like able to feel.
It was
And
like
so
what? I'm sorry.
it was like what I was seeing in the quote unquote visions that I had from my plant medicine experience I was able to feel.
Mm.
So I was like feeling everything that these women wasn't allowed to feel in their being. I was able to feel, and I felt so much lighter after that. And it's not like, oh, I did something. It was just like, it's like I have chosen this lifetime to come and do
Mm.
this work, and I'm learning it more and more as I'm working with the plant masters. It's like I have chosen to come to this life to do this work for me and my ancestors, and I've done a lot of work, and I have definitely taken some steps within my lineage that has never been done
Mm.
in before, and I
Yeah.
have reclaimed, and it's not always easy, but we've
Definitely.
done.
Definitely. And I want to ask you a bit more about that in a second. But I'm intrigued by something that you said when you said you felt lighter, right? It's interesting because you saw pictures and visions of other women suffering, and like one would think that that's like some sort of heaviness, right? So, what would you say had you feel lighter?
The release of the emotional that moved through my body. So I
Mm.
remember one time, I was laying on the floor and I was actually shaking, and and this shaman just came, and he had this, I don't really know what it's called paca, or it's like a
It's
little
like the
tool
leaf
that they
thing.
use that my body, and he was just singing, singing, singing. And it was like I just like felt like there was like a freedom that came from this experience. Like, not that I knew that it wasn't even like I knew, oh, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to be free. I'm going to feel light, or I'm going to feel better. It was just like, there's just like this knowing that what I had done had set free the souls and the spirits of these people and these women that was coming before my time, and was almost like waiting for me to come and anchor in, and allow for that to move through my body. um and yeah, and when I say I feel lighter, I feel always like when I do this work, with plant medicine, every time that I work with a plant medicine and after my experience, it's almost like there is like a shedding. There's like a heaviness that left out of my body through crying, or through purging, or through shaking, whatever it is that moves through me. And I just, every time I feel so much lighter.
Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. That definitely painted the picture. And that was in 2013, your first one, huh?
Yes,
It's
yes, yes,
2021
yes.
now. It's been a while, and you dove into the world of plant medicine to the point that you're now facilitating certain ceremonies. Is that right?
Yeah, so and what when I mean facilitating is I work with a woman here, a local shaman that, well, she doesn't really like to call herself a shaman. She's a medicine woman. She's
Hmm.
actually Italian, and one of them is Christina, who lives in Peru, and she holds women's. We've basically come to understand that holding containers for just women, and then focusing on clearing the womb and the ancestral lineage from the womb, and the pain and the trauma that we've been carrying as women inside of our womb space, and working with the plant medicine of ayahuasca is very profound.
Hmm.
And so I've been supporting her in and bringing these women together. So I'm a connector. I I'm like, okay, we're going to have this full moon ceremony, and here's what we're going to do, and here are the intentions. And then I support within the ceremony by holding space. I don't serve the medicine. I'm not someone, I mean, everybody carries their own ikaro, right? So everybody holds their own medicine song within them. But because I have been drinking medicine for such a long time, um, I have the capacity to hold space. And it's almost like my being just knows what that being needs in the moment. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's just sitting there in front of them as they're moving through their process. And sometimes it's putting my hands on them and transmitting a healing energy. And sometimes it's singing a song over them. It's always different every single time. Each energy is different. But yeah, I see myself as a guide, as a support for
Mm.
women as we, hold these transformational circles and healing circles. So yeah, it's
That's
truly such
amazing.
a great honor and a
Yeah.
privilege to have been invited to work with this medicine in this capacity. And I also have to say that I really honor the lineages of where these medicine come from. I'm not an advocate for anybody to just take ayahuasca in any setting. I'm very much an advocate for, let us work the
You said you're an
transmissions of
advocate
these.
for let us work with what? I'm sorry?
Let us work with the elders and the shamans that's been given the transmissions to work with the songs to help these people heal.
Mm.
Because these days, every brother and their mother is a shaman, and I don't believe that everybody has the healing capacity and gifts to hold the space for the medicine to do the work. And I want to keep it as being sacred. For me, it's about creating a sacred container and working with someone that is truly embodied in their work and they talk
Yeah.
when they serve medicine.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to participating in one myself down in the south end of the Nicoya Peninsula. Rasmus recommended I go to his family, as he calls them. So I'm very excited about that. I'll be coming back to Costa Rica May 3rd and scheduling it. So cool. We have a few minutes
Amazing.
left, Tish. I would love to ask, just so that our listeners can hear, what what are you most passionate about?
Hmm. Yeah. I am most passionate about creating spaces, creating and curating experiences for people to come together to heal and to awaken and to shift the consciousness of this planet. And really my greatest passion and purpose on planet Earth is to be a protector for Gaia.
Mm,
And that really means that supporting these communities to really be able to be in a place that as the shift in the planet is happening right now, that we can sustain ourselves through this massive shift and
wow.
transformation, because Gaia is able to
Because Gaia, what?
fully Gaia will heal herself. Like she
Mm,
will go through the shift and this change and human consciousness and planetary consciousness. But I believe that we, and one of my greatest purposes and passions here on this planet Earth, is to support those that are ready to do that and creating sustainable communities so that we can then live through this transformation and through this shift in consciousness.
that's awesome. That's awesome. And you're definitely in so much action doing exactly that, which is why I'm happy to know you. I'm proud of calling you a friend. Can't wait to hang out again. I know we will soon.
Yes.
And yeah, lastly, I'd love to give you an opportunity to share anything you want to share about how people could learn more about you, your projects, any offerings you might have. So please
Mm.
share.
So at the moment, what I'm focusing on is curating a private event that we will be holding here in Costa Rica, specifically designed for people that are interested in everything that we kind of talked about today, which is consciousness, awakening, plant medicine, communities, learning about investing in digital currencies, learning about ways and techniques to cleanse and heal their bodies in the best possible way, learning how to live in relation with the earth and how to make ceremony their lifestyle. And my intention and my prayer as I'm curating this with two other epic humans is to call in these people that are ready to make the shift. And it might be that they're interested in moving to Costa Rica or to another community and they want to come and connect with mind-like people. And so if you're interested in what I've just shared, get in touch with me, you can find me on Instagram, Sacred Tish, or you can just email me. My website is followyourblisscr.com. And I'm sure that Caesar will put my email and stuff for you on the show notes. But
Mm-hmm.
at the moment, that's really the one thing that I just want to share is that I'm curating this really special, epic, private, invitation only event that if you're feeling like this is what I want to come to, I want to learn, I want to connect with these humans, then reach out to me, because I believe that this is an amazing constellation for people that's ready to really take action into the next steps of expanding and awakening. And then other than that, if people is interested in working with plant medicine and they don't have anybody in Costa Rica that they can trust, they can reach out to me. I work with a handful of different shamans that I can highly recommend, that I've worked with over the years, that I can fully trust to recommend. So if you're looking to work with ayahuasca or iboga or kambo or psilocybin or whatever it is that's calling your name, and you kind of are like on the fence, but you feel like Costa Rica would be the right place for you to come and explore that, then reach out to me, because I I love connecting the right people with the right people, and I'm all about working with people that can truly support the healing and integration of our work, and not just like sell you an ayahuasca ceremony, but truly hold the space for your healing and the integration.
Amazing.
So
Amazing. Yeah,
yeah,
that is such a
really
great
it.
gift. Awesome. So Instagram at Sacred Tish, website followyourbliss.cr. And I can't wait for this event. It sounds like it's going to be epic.
Yeah,
I'm going to be there.
yeah,
And thank
amazing.
you so much, Tish, for coming on, sharing your wisdom, sharing your story, sharing your love with the Love is Our Nature listeners and community. And we hope to have you back one day. Anything else you want to say?
Thank you so much, Caesar. Yeah, my website is followyourblisscr.com, but we'll add
Gotcha.
it to the show notes. Thank you
Yep.
so much for the opportunity to share with you. And I so look forward and playing and praying with you here in Costa Rica. And thank you for the opportunity to be on this podcast. And thank you so much for all the hard work that you put into making this happen. I really, truly honor and appreciate you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a privilege, and I so enjoy it. All right, everybody, there you have it. Tish Steenkamp. Go follow her on Instagram. She's definitely someone who will help you expand. Thank you, Tish, and talk to everybody soon. Bye bye.
Ciao.